This race for the White House has been so close and so hotly contested. Only yesterday, the polls showed the candidates in a dead heat. So what tipped the scales in President Obama's favor? ABC's political consultant Matt Dowd joins me now to explain it all to us. Matt, why did Barack Obama win this election? Who voted for him?
Well, I think that the interesting thing about this race is that if you take a look at it over sort of the time period, 6 months, is this race was always at a slight advantage for the president. And I think Mitt Romney was ahead in the popular vote, and then we had Hurricane Sandy that happened, and I think he took a lead in the aftermath of that. But I think if you take a really look at this election, is the president's approval rating has sort of gained ground over the last 3 months, and that approval rating ended election day at 51%. And when you have a president ends their approval rating at 51%, they're almost always reelected. The other thing is the right direction number in this country increased by 25 points over the last 6 months as we went into election day. And what that did, it made a much better ground for the president to operate under. But fundamentally, he ran a campaign that targeted certain states and certain groups and got them out on election day. And when he did that on election day, that's how he won.
Okay, so who was it? It was
minorities, and that the changing nature of the country is that when minorities now represented, non-whites represented the largest share they've ever represented in any election in our history. Minorities did. It was single women. It was younger voters, and it was a coalition of those folks. He lost white voters in this election. He lost white males worse than any president has lost white males. All of those things. He's lost Republicans. But he put together that coalition of folks that is a growing coalition. He won Asian voters, and that coalition put him over the top.
You said to me earlier tonight that if George Bush, if George Bush's voters had voted...
That's what's interesting about what's going on in this country and what's happening in this country is the changes we're having, the different demography. If you took George Bush in 2004 when he won by 3 points and won the Electoral College and had him run this year and got the same percentages among those groups, he would have lost this race. And that tells you about the country.
So $6 billion spent in this campaign, and yet look at the results in the Senate. We still have a Democrat-controlled Senate. Right?
Well, here's what the result of the $6 billion, lots of time, lots of effort. Barack Obama's reelected. Close race, but he's reelected. The Senate now is going to have more Democrats than Republicans when everybody thought the Republicans had a chance to take over the Senate. And the Republican House is going to be almost exactly the same. And so what you learn about this is people are forced into two choices. They're forced to have to choose between two separate parties. Not always satisfactory choices that people have, but that's the choice they have. And what happens is people put on jerseys, and it doesn't matter what the name on their back is, it matters the color of their jersey. And once they have that color, the country divides.
You know, we heard the president say tonight in his speech that he learned something from this election, and he wants to reach across the aisle. He wants to govern the entire country. He wants to bring us together. Any chance of that?
Well, I think there's a chance if he really does it. I said earlier tonight in the evening as the election unfolded is that he should go back and redo what he said he was going to do 4 years ago, when all of the things that many of us thought he was going to do, which is bring the country together and unite us, which actually became more polarized. He can do it, but he can't leave it just as a speech tonight. I think within days of tonight, he has to go back to Congress and say, listen, I'm willing to work with you. Let's cut a deal. We have to do this for the sake of the country. I think his words were good, but I think his actions are the only way to make it happen.
Are Republicans willing to meet him halfway?
I think he's the only person that can force them to do it is him. And I think if he really pushes on it, the Republican Party is in a desperate situation today. They do not match the country anymore. They can't lose Latinos, they can't lose Asians, they can't lose young women, they can't lose women as a whole and still be a majority party.
In 30 seconds, what did we learn about America tonight?
We learned that we're an extremely divided country. We're divided young versus old, we're divided male versus female, we're divided people that go to church every Sunday but people that don't, we're divided minority versus white. And that divide, we have to figure out some way to bring it together and solve. And that's what I think we learned today. We're an incredibly divided country that needs to come together.
Can it happen?
I think it can happen, but it's incumbent. I've recommended some sort of Camp David peace conference amongst ourselves. We're going to have to solve the divide in order to solve the huge problems that face us.
Matt Dowd, as always, it's great to talk to you.
Thanks.
What a night. You've had a long night.
It's been fun, but I will. Thank you.